It's Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here in Sacramento today, joined by Heath Flora. He is a member of the California State Assembly, a new member, in fact. He comes to us as a firefighter. We thank you so much, Mr. Firefighter, for joining us. Talk to us about the move from being a firefighter serving in one capacity and now as a state legislator serving in another capacity.
I think a lot of us that come involved or get involved in public safety, right. It's all about the ability to serve the community that we live in, the community of California as a whole. And so coming out of public safety, where you have the ability to directly affect people's lives when they call 911, to show up to an emergency situation and somehow bring some sort of sense of calm to that otherwise chaotic situation, is exciting. And so moving into politics is uniquely the same, where there is a lot of chaos at times. And
a lot.
And sometimes it just takes an adult to be in the room.
Right.
And to be able to just very calmly address situations for the merit of the things and keep personality and personal stuff out of it, but just to the merits of bills is something that's very exciting. And those of us in public safety kind of have a unique background in dealing with that, because when you go into somebody's house,
right.
you don't really care what their political affiliation. You take care of a problem and we move on. So
well
politics
stated.
is a lot the same.
Very well stated, if I may say. I want to talk about your former colleagues, I guess, the firefighters of our state. Mm-hmm. I don't have a sense. Do we have enough firefighters? Are we looking to hire more firefighters? Where do we stand, sir?
When the economy crashed there in 2008, a lot of public safety cops, firefighters, right. cities, they really went on a hiring freeze for many, many years. Folks that were retiring, I mean, even to the point where they were buying out folks to get them to retire early so they could balance some budgets. We haven't really seen that the hiring pick back up as much as it needs to. So there is a shortage right now for firefighters. It is something that's being addressed, and we will get on top of it. But right now there is a big opportunity.
Yeah, and as I understand it, about 12,000 new firefighting positions should be open over the next 5, 7, 10 years.
That's correct.
That's a real number.
It is a real number. Absolutely.
I want to get a sense, though, how does one become a firefighter?
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, and we'll get into the bill in just a few minutes here.
But before that, yeah.
So it's a bit of a long process. So a lot of times there's some prerequisites. You have to have an EMT class or a first responder class for maybe a volunteer, maybe a smaller jurisdiction. But most paid agencies require an EMT class. Mm-hmm. They require you to take a physical agility test, which is now a standardized test that the state has put on. A lot of folks are buying into that, which is good. It's a very standard physical agility test. And then you take a written test for the individual departments. And then you go into an oral board process.
Oh, wow.
And then there's a secondary oral board process.
This is serious. This
yes,
is a very thorough process.
Very thorough.
What we know, though, is that as we look at the firefighters that are serving us in California and nationally, I guess there's not a lot of diversity, be it gender diversity, ethnic diversity, and we may have a sense as to the reasons why, but give us a real kind of glimpse into what we see in terms of the ranks of firefighters.
I think traditionally, back in the day, it was a very prominent white industry.
Right. White male
industry,
right.
Yes. And you do see that changing, though. And that's one thing I am excited about the future of the fire services, is we're starting to get people that represent their communities to serve in the fire stations that are in that community.
And it's interesting because it seems like with the police units, you're seeing a lot of increased diversity. It's
correct.
Community policing, yes. People that serve as cops look like the folks that they are serving. Right. But, when it comes to firefighters, I mean, can I say these numbers are pretty surprising. Only 3.5% of all firefighters are women, 6.8% African American, 1.4% Asian, 7.7% Latino. Yeah. That's pretty low.
No, and when we talk about the bill, it's one of those things we're working to address. When it comes to some of these different groups, right. They may or may not want to be involved. And I think as the testing process evolves, we have to make very sure that we don't lower the standards for anybody.
Fair enough.
Because there is a physical attribute to, right. to the job. There truly is. For me, in turnouts, I'm probably pushing 280 pounds. And so if you have a male or female that physically can't drag me out if I get injured, or if you go to rescue somebody that's in a fire, they have to be physically able to do the job, or we become a liability as well.
But at the same time, race gender presumably shouldn't matter.
That's exactly right.
There's no reason why these people can't serve if you're willing to do the work.
Which is why you're exactly right, and it's why we're excited about the bill, and we're excited.
And let's talk about the bill, because I'm excited for the bill as well. Yeah. Tell us about AB 579. You're all about it, working with Assemblyman Jim Cooper on it.
Yes.
Tell us all about it.
So it's a great bill. It's one of those bills to address the very issue that we're talking about here with diversifying the fire service to a degree as much as we possibly can. When you talk about these underrepresented communities in our society, a lot of times they do come from lower middle class families. And an EMT class is going to be roughly $1,500 to $3,000.
That's real money.
It's real money for these kids. And then you have a standardized physical agility test. Well, if these folks have never picked up a chainsaw, they've never drug a hose, they've never climbed a ladder, they've never done any of these things, to just think that we're going to throw them into a test and have them be successful, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So what this does is it provides pre-apprenticeship funding within the high schools in these underrepresented communities to get these kids the funding and the practical knowledge to be successful just at the entry level, to just become eligible to take a test. The very minimum requirements they're going to need to even apply. And our hope is if we can get these kids out there, get them excited about public service, get somebody from that community into the fire service, they go back home, they talk about it to their buddies, and we can kind of snowball this effect.
And what's fantastic about this bill, I'm trying not to take a position, but let's just say, you don't know what you don't know. And so by providing this program, it's at a minimum exposure.
That's exactly right.
And just have the exposure to the possibilities.
That's all we want is to give them
endless.
That's all we want is to give them the opportunity.
I want to shift gears, if I may, and speak with you about another piece of legislation that you're proposing. It has to do with greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes.
What we know is that California has certain targets that it seeks to meet through AB 32, SB 32. And cap and trade dollars come in as a result of those programs. Cap and trade dollars are down a bit, but that's another conversation. Right. But regardless, you're looking to look at greenhouse gases, and you're looking at it in a way that is focused on ag. Tell us about that.
It's another bill that I'm actually very excited about, because it takes an industry that may or may not have always been perceived of caring about this particular issue, and as it relates to 1342, it actually addresses our forest issues as well. And that's a lot of the environmental groups are really excited about this bill, is because they understand right now, and depending on the watershed, but roughly 40 to 60 trees per acre is a healthy forest. Right now we're looking at anywhere from 200 to 400 trees per acre in a healthy is in our forest system. So what that does for us is in public safety, CAL FIRE, which is where I come from, that increases the intensity of our fires, the cost of dollars to put those fires out, the man hours required for suppression on these fires.
It's funny you say that, because I learned through this show that the Smokey the Bear campaign may not have been the best approach.
You know,
maybe we want to let some of these forests burn down
we have become so good at fire suppression that Mother Nature has not been allowed to kind of do what she's done for a very, very long time. But with this particular bill, it's really working with CAL FIRE and vegetation management practices, and some of those folks, CAL Recycle, directing funding into them. So as we take, because we're not going to be able to do all of this with controlled VMP burns. And
what we know is that a fire can release a huge amount of greenhouse gases, and so if there is some thinning or otherwise, it can be beneficial to the environment. And if you're able to take some of this foliage and put it into recycling, it can also help. I want to talk more about this the next time you come back. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, his name is Heath Flora. He is an assemblyman from the Central Valley. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you for joining us from Sacramento on Local Edition.